Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Donald Trump was waiting for a phone call from China. He said the Chinese want a trade deal but don't know how to ask for it. As it turned out, the Chinese had other plans. They were taking the trade war to TikTok. They have unleashed videos to humiliate Western brands. They've also curbed the supply of rare earth minerals. We'll tell you all about it. Also, if India can benefit from this standoff. As the US-China standoff worsens, how should India play its cards? And how did the last trade war end? What are the lessons for the world? We'll discuss all of this. In other news, the demand for burner phones is going up. Europeans and Canadians heading to the US are being advised to use them. We will tell you why. How Pakistan's Balochistan nightmare continues. This time, 8 Pakistanis have been shot dead in Iran. What are Russian warships doing in Bangladesh? Is Putin eyeing an airbase in Indonesia? Why has Algeria expelled 12 French diplomats? Will Meta be forced to sell Instagram and WhatsApp? Why has Pfizer abandoned its obesity pill? Do we really understand the risks of weight loss drugs? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Iran's supreme leader says he is satisfied with the ongoing nuclear talks with the US, but warns that they could prove to be fruitless. Trump has threatened to strike Iran's nuclear facilities if no deal is reached. Last week, officials from Tehran and Washington met in Oman. They are due to meet in Muscat again on Saturday. Syrian president visits Qatar. It is his first official trip to the Gulf state. Qatar was one of the first Arab countries to back the armed rebellion against Bashar al-Assad, who was ousted in December last year. Qatar's emir was also the first head of state to visit Damascus since Assad fled Syria. In India, trouble brewing for Congress party leaders Sonia and Rahul Gandhi. The Enforcement Directorate files a charge sheet against them in the National Herald case. The Gandhis have been accused of money laundering. The Congress party claims it is vendetta politics by the ruling BJP. The next hearing is on the 25th of April. The Sudan marks 2 years of a civil war that has killed thousands and displaced millions, triggering the world's worst humanitarian crisis. In 2023, fighting erupted between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces. The UK is hosting a conference to find a path to end the conflict, but has not invited either of the warring parties. The Maldives bans the entry of Israelis, says it is to show solidarity with the Palestinian people. The ban will be implemented with immediate effect. Last year, Israel had urged its citizens to avoid traveling to the archipelago. The Maldives had lifted a previous ban on Israeli tourists in the early 1990s. And a sandstorm in Iraq sweeps through its central and southern cities, leaving people gasping for breath. Nearly 4,000 have been hospitalized. 2 airports were also forced to close as visibility fell to less than 1 kilometer.
For nearly $100.
This bag from our factory only cost you $1,000 USD.
The trade war has entered a new phase. China has changed its posture. It is no longer playing defense. It has gone on the offensive. China is now taking the fight straight to the American consumer. It is weaponizing social media and recruiting Chinese suppliers to launch the attacks. Take a look at this.
Do you recognize this style? For the past more than 30 years, we have been the OEM factory for most of the luxury brands around the world. Gucci, Prada, Coach, Louis Vuitton, you name it. But for this, I am not proud because we were only making our wages. The profit margin for the people who are actually making the bags are very low. Now, as the USA and its little European brothers are trying to refuse Chinese goods, why don't you just contact us and buy from us? You won't believe the prices we give you.
The battlefield is TikTok. It is flooded with such factory videos. Chinese suppliers are reaching out to American customers directly. They have a simple message for them. Skip the middlemen, buy straight from China. And that too for cheap. At the same time, they're trying to embarrass Western brands, names like Lululemon, Nike, Fila and Birkenstock. In one video, a woman is selling Lululemon leggings for $6. In the US, they retail for $100. Another video shows luxury handbags, again priced at a fraction of their retail cost. It features a so-called Birkin bag. The retail price is around $38,000, but this seller says it costs just $1,400 to make.
This Birkin bag at Hermes boutique will cost you 38,000 USD. But what is the real cost out of the factory? Today, I'm going to break it down in front of you, step by step. First thing first, Hermes only use the leathers from the 3 top-level suppliers. One piece of Togo leather will cost 450 USD. The thread is also the best top level. For each bag, the cost is 25 USD. For one piece of bag, the hardware will cost 150 USD. Edge oil. For each bag, it will cost 50 USD. The interior lining for each bag, the cost will be 100 USD. And then the cost of human resource. To finish one bag, the human resource cost will be 600 USD. The total cost will be 1,400 USD for one Birkin out of factory. But why Hermes will charge you 38,000 USD for one bag? That's because more than 90% of the price is paid for its logo. But if you do not care about the logo, you just want the same quality, same material, you can just buy from us.
So same product from the same factory, made from the same materials, with just the brand logo missing. What's the point of these videos? They're trying to humiliate Western brands, to show the world that their products are made in China and to expose how much they overcharge their customers. Now, we cannot vouch for the accuracy of their claims. After all, they are coming from China. It is known for copying, so many of these products could just be knockoffs. And China is well known for that. And yet, this campaign has struck a chord. Even Chinese diplomats have jumped in. One of them took aim at Caroline Leavitt. She is the White House press secretary. She is being mocked for a dress that she wore. This Chinese diplomat says the dress was made in China. This is what he wrote on X. Accusing China is business, buying China is life. So the attacks are coming from all sides, not just on social media, but on American companies too. They are being punished for Trump's trade war. The latest victim is Boeing. Beijing has issued a diktat to all Chinese airplanes. Stop taking deliveries of Boeing planes. That's what China has told its airlines. Now, this is a setback for Boeing. China's aviation market is expanding rapidly. In the next 20 years, China will account for 20% of the global aircraft demand. Now, Boeing had managed to get a foothold. It had dozens of orders from Chinese airlines. Air China had ordered 45 Boeing planes. China Eastern Airlines, another 53 planes, and China Southern Airlines, 81 planes. These are China's top 3 airlines. Now, Boeing could be losing them as customers. China is also weaponizing supplies of rare earths. Their exports to the US have been suspended. There's a whole list of metals which have been banned, at least 6 of them. At least 6 of them, in fact, are rare earth metals. China won't be sending them to the US anymore. Beijing has also banned rare earth magnets. Again, this is quite significant because a range of industries use these magnets, from automobiles to drones and robots, and even missile assembling. They all need rare earth magnets. But China has halted their shipments for now. Meanwhile, President Xi Jinping is traveling. He's on a tour of Southeast Asia. His first stop is Vietnam. He arrived in Hanoi last night. Xi Jinping has urged Vietnam's leaders to resist what he called unilateral bullying. That's a clear dig at Donald Trump and his tariff plans. At the same time, President Xi is pitching China as a stable partner. He is offering the best of globalization to these countries. He is promising open markets, stronger bilateral ties, and a unified response to American pressure.
面对外部的不确定性， In the face of external uncertainties, China will insist on joining hands rather than throwing punches, tearing down walls instead of building barriers, connecting instead of decoupling. We will continue to expand the circle of trade friends, become a stronger magnet for investment, develop with high quality and open to the outside world at a high level, to inject more stability and positive energy into the world economy.
注入更多的稳定性和正能量。
We are not afraid of trouble. That's what Xi Jinping has said in the past. He said it just a few days back. As Trump was escalating tariffs on China every day, Xi struck a defiant note. Then, over the weekend, the US did a U-turn. It exempted most electronics from the high tariffs. This came as a relief to China. But China did not reciprocate in easing off the pressure. It wants to keep the fight going now, and Donald Trump says he is not surprised. Listen to this.
I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. They're meeting, like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America.
Trump started this fight with China. Xi Jinping is in no hurry to end it. He's playing the long game. He looks set for a prolonged clash with the US, and he's taking the fight to all fronts: trade, technology, and now TikTok. We'll be tracking this for you. One country's trade war is another country's opportunity. That's how India should see this. Yes, there will be a hit, but there will also be opportunities. New Delhi's job is to hunt for those chances. And one area could be rare earth metals. Like I said, China has halted the export of these metals to the US. It's a move that could cripple US businesses. But could India intervene? Can we plug the gap left by China? Let's try to answer that tonight. First of all, what are rare earth metals? These are a group of 17 elements in the periodic table. Most of them have really weird names, like europium, or holmium, or scandium. As weird as they sound, they're pretty important. You need rare earths to make a number of crucial products like semiconductors, electric vehicle motors, fighter jets and missiles, wind turbines, and even your LED lights. Basically, these are metals of the future. And where does China come in? Well, China dominates rare earth production. China makes up 70% of all rare earth output. They also make up 90% of rare earth magnets. These are magnets made from rare earth metals. They're key to making EVs. Now, this dominance is not an accident. China identified the importance of rare earths back in the 1990s. First, they put tight controls on the deposits. Rare earths were declared as strategic and protected reserves. Then China invested in processing technology. Like all ores, rare earth has to be extracted and processed. And China took the lead in doing that. And since then, there's been no looking back. This near monopoly is worrying for other countries. China's latest ban has spooked the White House. Listen to what Trump's trade advisor said.
The rare earth limits are being studied very carefully, and they're concerning, and we're thinking about all the options right now.
The US is rightly worried because rare earths go into almost everything, even their flagship F-35 fighter jets. Normally, such crucial inputs would be stocked. But reports say most American companies do not have stocks because rare earths are quite costly. If you stock them, a lot of your cash would be tied up. I'm sure they're regretting that decision now. But what's the way forward? Could India play a role here? On paper, yes. Look at the largest reserves of rare earths in our world. China is at number 1. They have around 44 million tons of it. Second is Brazil with 21 million tons, and India is actually third with 6.9 million tons Australia is fourth with 5.7 million, and Russia is at the fifth position. So availability is not a problem. In fact, it never was. Don't fall for the name rare earths. Most of these metals are not actually rare. They're found across the earth. Then what is the problem? Extraction and processing. India and the US are hoping to collaborate on this. It came up during Prime Minister Modi's recent trip to the White House. Both sides agreed to jointly explore opportunities. The problem is this is going to take time. Rare earths industry cannot be built overnight. China's rare earth industry was not built overnight either. It was created over decades. Nonetheless, it's important to prepare for the long term, to create an alternative rare earth supply chain. And Donald Trump is certainly game. He is hunting for rare earths in war-torn Ukraine and freezing Greenland. So he's clearly desperate for alternatives. And India? Well, last month the government announced a major move. It allowed private companies to mine rare earths. So clearly India is aware of the opportunity. The question is, how quickly can we scale it? Because time is of the essence. And I'm not just talking about rare earths, I'm also talking about the broader manufacturing pivot. India wants to become an alternative to Chinese factories. Most policymakers feel that the time is right. They point to Trump's hefty tariffs on other Asian producers. Remember, India was tariffed at 26%, but other Asian countries faced a much higher tariff. So on paper, this will help India. This should. It will make Indian goods more competitive. But that alone will not sway companies. Producers will look for other factors as well, like how cheap are the raw materials, how good is the public infrastructure, how easy is it to acquire land and set up a business, how soon can you settle disputes. All these factors affect the final decision of a business, perhaps more than tariffs. So India's focus should be on creating a robust manufacturing environment. Public infrastructure has grown leaps and bounds in the last 10 years. The ease of doing business has also improved, but clearly more needs to be done. If not, India could miss the manufacturing bus again.
Tariffs give our country protection against those that would do us economic harm. And so we're going to be announcing very shortly a major tariff on pharmaceuticals.
Donald Trump is not done yet. He's floating new tariffs on US imports. In the last round, he had exempted certain key sectors like semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, but now he's targeting them too. Trump says he wants to make chips and drugs in America. His solution? Impose more tariffs.
We don't make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China. And all I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, it's very simple. It's inversely proportional. The higher the tariff, the faster they come.
These tariffs are expected by later this week. They would escalate the trade war even further. The question is, what is the end game? How will this trade war end? Well, this is not Trump's first rodeo. He launched a trade war against China in his first term as well. His concerns were largely the same. China has a massive trade surplus with the US. China is manipulating its currency, and China is stealing US intellectual property. All fair complaints. At first, Trump tried talks with China. He and Xi Jinping agreed on a 100-day roadmap. When that failed, the tariffs came into the picture. Trump fired his first salvo in 2018. He slapped tariffs on solar panels from China. What followed was multiple rounds of retaliation. By 2019, both sides were heavily tariffed. Trump levied tariffs between 10 and 30% on China. They targeted almost $550 billion in exports. And China? Well, they targeted US exports worth $185 billion. In scale, that was a smaller war. The tariff rates were much lower than this time. Plus, it was limited largely to China. This time, Trump is targeting every trading partner. even allies and partner countries, all of them are in the line of fire. So what can we learn from the first trade war? Does it offer clues to understand this one? Well, the biggest learning was this: both China and America suffered because of it. By 2019, the trade war cost the US around 300,000 jobs. It also shaved 0.3% of the GDP. US companies also took a hit. They lost around $1.7 trillion in market value. That was the loss to the US. China too felt the pinch. Their growth had started to slow towards the end of the 2010s, and Trump's trade war made it worse. China grew by just 6.1% in 2019, which was their slowest GDP growth in 29 years. Both sides were hurt by this trade war. And how did it end? Well, the trade war did not have an official conclusion. It sort of faded away. In 2020, the US and China signed a partial trade deal. China agreed to buy $200 billion of extra US goods. They also promised not to steal US technology. But Beijing did not follow through. They bought none of the $200 billion in goods. So in simple words, they lied. Then came the Wuhan virus pandemic. As the virus spread, the trade war took a backseat. By 2021, Trump was out of office. His successor, Joe Biden, retained most of the tariffs on China, but his approach was less combative. Which brings us to present day. Trump resumed his trade war as soon as he returned to office. The question is, how will it end? Based on the last war, we can be certain of a couple of things. Number one, eventually there will be a statement and a settlement. It may not come today or tomorrow, or even this year, but the settlement will come because the costs are too high for both sides. In the US, Trump will face pressure from farmers. You see, oilseeds and grains are America's top export to China. Within that, soybeans are a big chunk. China buys American soybean to feed its pigs. If that export is hurt, American farmers will revolt. And these are the same farmers who voted for Trump. This happened in 2018 as well. Soybean producers lost $20 billion in trade. So that's point number one. Number two, even if the war ends, the impact will be long-term. This conflict will push China and the US apart, basically speed up their decoupling. The proof is the last trade war. China made up more than 15% of America's trade in 2018, but by 2024, it was down to under 11%. The US made up more than 13% of China's trade in 2018, which has now fallen to 11%. So both sides are moving away from each other. This promises to be a painful divorce, especially for consumers and businesses on both sides. And for the rest of the world? Well, for starters, it's a front row view to global big power competition. Two massive powers slugging it out in the open. And secondly, it's an opportunity. As old supply chains break down, new ones will emerge. If you play your cards right, you could reap the benefits. Have you heard of burner phones? They're cheap, prepaid phones. You buy one, you make the call, and then you toss it. Hence the name burner, as in burn the device. Now, these phones are not new. They've been used for years to go incognito. Drug dealers apparently love them. So do undercover agents. Crime thrillers made them famous. And now these phones are back in demand. Do you know why? Who is buying burner phones? European Union officials, diplomats, and Canadian citizens, the ones who are heading to the United States, they're all rushing to get burner phones. And no, this is not a scene from a spy thriller. Take a look at this report. It says the European Commission is now issuing burner phones and basic laptops. This is for officials who are traveling to the United States. They're also being handed protective sleeves to guard against electronic spying. Now, here's the thing. This is not a brand new protocol. The EU has long issued similar advisories. They were meant for travel to countries like Russia and China, places where aggressive surveillance is expected. But the United States, the so-called beacon of freedom, it is under scrutiny for the very thing it condemns. So Europeans are taking no chances, and it says a lot about their relationship with the US. It started with Trump's new border policies. This is what reports say, that US border agents are now scanning mobile phones. They're digging through emails and scrolling through social media feeds. And what happens if they find posts that are critical of the administration? They detain some travelers and turn away others. I'll show you one example. A French scientist was invited to speak at a conference. He was interrogated at the border and then he was denied entry. The reason? What he said on his posts online, especially against Trump's science policies. So he was not allowed entry. So Europe is now cautioning its diplomats and officials to use burner phones and save yourself the trouble. And the EU is not alone here. Canadian lawyers have the same suggestion. They're asking citizens to carry burner phones to the US. The idea is to prevent any sort of surveillance. Immigration lawyers have one suggestion. Clear US customs in Canada. It's called the US pre-clearance. Basically, you can clear US customs and immigration at Canadian airports. So when you land in the US, you don't have to do it again. That's what immigration lawyers are recommending. This way you can avoid surveillance. Now, technically, US border authorities can search your devices without a warrant. They can ask for your passcode. They can look through your texts, your emails, photos, social media. They can also make a copy of your data. All of this is legal. If you are a visitor, you can be denied entry. And this is not a Trump-era phenomenon. Even before this administration, US Customs and Border Protection had sweeping powers. These powers were expanded post the 9/11 attacks, and they were never quite rolled back. What Trump has done is make it worse. His policies have not introduced surveillance, they have intensified it. This is being done to crack down on immigration. But the result is chaos. Visitors are being detained, they are being turned back. Many countries have issued advisories, and we are now seeing the slow unraveling of a perception that democratic nations do not behave like surveillance states. The United States has long styled itself as a land of the free, a place where freedom of speech is a birthright and dissent is patriotic. But policies like these blur that picture. They raise a very uncomfortable question. If your freedom of expression ends at the border, was it ever truly freedom? Now let's talk about Pakistan. Baloch separatists are challenging Islamabad once again. Over the weekend, 8 Pakistani workers were shot dead. This happened in Iran, which shares a long border with Pakistan's Balochistan province. The attackers tied up the Pakistanis and executed them in cold blood. A Baloch separatist group has claimed responsibility, and this attack is the latest sign that Baloch insurgents are expanding their operations. Last month, they hijacked a train inside Pakistan. It was done by the BLA, the Baloch Liberation Army. The siege lasted more than a day, scores of people were killed, and now the violence has spilled into Iran. Both countries have condemned the killings, but tensions are rising. Baloch separatists are armed, mobile, and increasingly fearless. And Pakistan's grip on Balochistan may be slipping. Our next report tells you more.
Pakistan's old wounds are bleeding again. The Baloch separatists have struck again, this time from across the border. 8 Pakistani workers were tied up and executed in Iran over the weekend, all because they were Pakistani citizens. The attack took place in Sistan, Balochistan. This is near Iran's border with Pakistan. The province is home to a large population of ethnic Baloch people. They have deep and historical ties with the Baloch communities in Pakistan and Afghanistan. The attack was swift and brutal, but it wasn't random. A Baloch separatist group has claimed responsibility. They call themselves the Baloch Nationalist Army or the BNA. Their message to Islamabad is clear. The Baloch insurgency isn't just alive, it's spreading. Last month, Baloch separatists hijacked a train in Pakistan. About 400 passengers were on board. The siege lasted over 24 hours. Dozens were killed, including the attackers, civilians and security personnel. That operation was claimed by the BLA, the Balochistan Liberation Army. And now the Baloch Nationalist Army is taking credit for cross-border killings. And Pakistani authorities once again look helpless. Islamabad has called on Tehran for help, but behind this appeal lies a stark reality. The insurgency is no longer contained and no longer confined to its borders. It's gone regional, and the response from Islamabad, mostly military, rarely political, has failed to stop it. Pakistan's Balochistan problem is not just getting bigger, it's becoming more complex to solve. Baloch separatism is straining ties with Iran. In 2024, there was a dangerous standoff. Iran and Pakistan launched missile strikes on each other's territory. It was the most serious escalation in years. Both accused the other side of harboring militants. Promises were made to restore calm. Instead, the tensions are now escalating.
Allahu Akbar.
The attack in Iran exposes Pakistan's growing vulnerability. The Baloch fighters are moving freely. They're armed, organized, and relentless. For Pakistan, this is more than a security threat, it's a crisis of control. Pakistan's hold on Balochistan is slipping. The separatists are testing Pakistan's generals. And they're sending a message. They won't warn before the next strike.
Our next story is about Russia's military expansion. Two countries are on Russian President Vladimir Putin's radar, Bangladesh and Indonesia. 3 Russian warships are in Bangladesh. They arrived quietly, but now their presence is making waves. And then we have Indonesia. There are whispers of Russia wanting access to this country, of Putin eyeing an airbase on an Indonesian island. So what is Moscow up to? Clearly, there is more to warships docking. Let me break it down for you, starting with Bangladesh. 3 Russian warships are in the country, like I said. They are docked in Chittagong. It is Bangladesh's second largest city, and the Russian ships are there for 4 days. Both sides are calling it a quote-unquote goodwill visit. Russia says this is a routine pit stop. But why would Russian warships sail thousands of kilometers, all for a handshake? Of course, there's more to it. Last week, Bangladesh's army chief visited Moscow. He met top Russian military officials there. On the agenda were 2 things, weapons and defense cooperation. And within a week, Russian warships are in Bangladesh. In fact, ties between the 2 countries go back to the Cold War era. You may also remember what happened in 1971. Russian warships blocked access to the Bay of Bengal. This was during Bangladesh's liberation war. Russia prevented American ships from supplying weapons to Pakistan. They played a vital role in the liberation of Bangladesh. Since then, Dhaka has heavily relied on Moscow for weapons, and they still do. Plus, Russia has major investments in Bangladesh, like the Rupur nuclear plant. It is Bangladesh's only nuclear power plant. It has been funded and made by Russia, and it is supposed to be commissioned this year. So clearly, Moscow has strategic interests in Bangladesh, and access to the Indian Ocean is a bonus. Now, Putin wants to build on it, which brings us to the second country in focus, Indonesia. Russia wants an airbase on an Indonesian island. This is what reports say. The island in question is called Biak. It is in eastern Indonesia and 1,400 kilometers away from Australia. Think about it, a Russian airbase in the Indo-Pacific. It's a direct challenge to the US and its allies. Apparently, Russia wants to deploy long-range bombers in Indonesia. Again, these are just reports for now, but look at the timeline. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto visited Moscow last year in the month of October. Do you know what happened next? Indonesia joined BRICS, and Russia had a major say in that decision. Then, Putin's right-hand man, Sergei Shoigu, went to Jakarta. In February this year, he held talks on a wide range of subjects, trade, tourism, and perhaps military access. And here's where things get interesting. Prabowo is expected to meet Putin this June. Maybe they will talk about a base for Russian planes, maybe not. Either way, the reports have the region on edge. Indonesia has rubbished them, but Australia is jittery. Listen to this.
We are ascertaining, having a look at those reports, as the Foreign Minister and Defence Minister have said. We have a good relationship with our friends in Indonesia, and we're seeking further clarification. We are seeking further information. We obviously do not want to see Russian influence in our region, very clearly. We have a position, which is we stand with Ukraine.
Putin sees Indonesia's importance. It is a country with 17,000 islands, and it overlooks one of the most strategic checkpoints and choke points in the world, the Malacca Strait. If you connect the dots, this is what you see. Putin may be isolated in Europe, but he is making moves in the Indo-Pacific. He's on a charm offensive in the global south. Russia has already secured a naval base in Sudan. Russian troops in Western Africa have been deployed as well. And now Moscow is looking to expand its influence. The Indo-Pacific is a chessboard. Everyone wants a piece of it. China has already militarized the South China Sea. The US is forming groups with allies, and now Russia is making a pivot. Is this a bold new strategy, or is it a gamble? We ask because Russia's navy is already stretched thin. The war in Ukraine has drained their resources. So again, the question, is this an adventure that Moscow cannot afford, or part of the long game that Putin has mastered? We'll be watching this space. Now we turn to North Africa. A diplomatic storm is brewing between Algeria and France. Two nations bound by history are locking horns. First, France arrested 3 Algerians, including a diplomat. The accusation? Kidnapping an opponent of the Algerian government who lives in Paris. A French court has charged the Algerians with conspiracy to incite terror. And now Algeria has responded. 12 French diplomats have been expelled. They have 48 hours to leave the African country. But France is doubling down. Paris is threatening more consequences. Algeria says France wants to sabotage ties. So what's behind this diplomatic spat? Our next report explains.
A diplomatic spat is spiraling out of control. The two countries involved are Algeria and France. From expelled diplomats to accusations of betrayal. This feud is raising tensions between the North African country and its former colonizer. It all started last week. French prosecutors indicted 3 Algerians, including a consular official. They were accused of attempting to kidnap a man named Amir Boukhors in Paris. Boukhors was given political asylum by France in 2023. He is known for being critical of the Algerian government. A French court has now ruled against the 3 Algerians. They have been charged with conspiracy to incite terror and are now in pre-trial detention. France says Algiers ordered the kidnapping of Boukhors. However, Algeria has dismissed all allegations. Now, Algeria has fired back. It has expelled 12 French diplomats and given them 48 hours to leave the country. Algeria says the decision is in retaliation to France's charges on its consul official. Algiers is accusing Paris of trying to sabotage ties. And this crisis has been brewing for months. It began in July of 2024. French President Emmanuel Macron ignited a fire. He sidelined Algeria and backed its rival Morocco. Macron said Morocco had sovereignty over the Western Sahara, a territory Algeria calls independent. After Macron's statements, Algeria recalled its ambassador from Paris. Then the blows began. Algeria halted trade with France in many sectors and made a strong pivot to Russia, signing a deal with Moscow for weapons including stealth fighter jets. Now, Algeria has even given airbase access to the Russian Air Force. Clearly, Algiers is sending a message to its former colonizer. Anti-France sentiment has been on the rise in northern and western Africa. Sahel juntas from Mali, Niger, Chad and Burkina Faso were the first to push out France. Algeria seems to be following in their footsteps. The expulsion of 12 French diplomats is proof. It may even be the strongest diplomatic move against France since Algeria's independence in 1962. But this feud goes beyond an Algerian critic and some expelled French diplomats. It is about a history that refuses to stay buried. France colonized Algeria for almost 132 years. The War of Independence left deep scars. Thousands were killed, millions displaced. In the end, Algeria got independence. But the wounds are still raw, and tensions between the two are erupting now. But there's a twist. Both countries need each other in many ways. France depends on Algeria for gas and security intelligence, while Algeria needs French investments and trade. Both countries also have people-to-people connections. More than 12% of French population is Algerian. The two countries also have a migration pact. Algerian nationals enjoy several exceptions to French immigration laws. But the latest tensions are denting these ties. France is reviewing the migration pact. It is also threatening Algeria with more consequences over the expulsion of the 12 French diplomats. But Algeria is also not backing down. It is threatening France with energy cuts. Paris and Algiers seem to be stuck in a loop of mistrust. The question is, who will blink first?
The year was 2012. Instagram was a tiny photo-sharing app. You could put a filter on your lunch and call it art. It had around 30 million users and it made no money. But it caught the eye of one man, Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta. He invited Instagram's co-founder, Kevin Systrom, over to his house. It was for a casual dinner and the two men talked about technology, and then Zuckerberg dropped the offer. He would buy Instagram for $1 billion. That's right, $1 billion for an app that had not made a single dollar. Back then, it sounded insane, but Zuckerberg did not wait around. He closed the deal within 48 hours. Fast forward 2 years, and he did it again. In 2014, this time with WhatsApp. He bought WhatsApp for $19 billion. Now, both these deals were ridiculed. But it looks like Zuckerberg knew what he was doing. Today, Instagram makes over $40 billion every year in ad revenue. WhatsApp has over 3 billion users, which is not bad at all for a couple of risky bets, but they've come back to haunt Meta. The company is facing an antitrust case in the US. The charge? Meta did not just buy these apps to grow, it bought them to kill competition. Leading the charge is the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, FTC. This is an antitrust watchdog in the US. Now, FTC claims that Meta wanted to neutralize competition, that it was easier to buy them than take on them. If they win the case, if the watchdog wins the case, Meta may be broken up. They may be forced to sell WhatsApp and Instagram. So this is a landmark trial for the company. And what does Meta have to say? On Monday, Mark Zuckerberg took the stand. He defended Meta's acquisitions. He called them strategic moves. More importantly, Mark Zuckerberg believes that Meta made Instagram better. Does the FTC agree with him? Well, not really. They are using his own emails against him. Like this email from 2012. Zuckerberg writes, and I quote, "In the time it has taken us to get our act together on this, Instagram has become a large and viable competitor to us on mobile photos, which will increasingly be the future of photos." Here's another one. "We are so far behind that we don't understand how far behind we are. I worry that it will take us too long to catch up." FTC, the watchdog, says that these emails are a smoking gun, that they suggest Zuckerberg's panic. Now, this antitrust trial is expected to go on for some time. These things are usually long-winding, but Zuckerberg wants to wrap it up, and he is lobbying Donald Trump for it, the US president. Since Trump took office, Zuckerberg has been to the White House thrice. That's because he did not want the trial to begin in the first place, but now it has begun, so he wants to end it fast. We don't know how successful he will be, but even if Meta is asked to break up, it may not really happen. Number one, it will take a lot of time. Tech antitrust cases take years. In 1999, a federal judge asked Microsoft to break up. 1999. The company appealed it. The decision was overturned. So antitrust corporate breakups are very rare, even when the government is pushing for it. That's one problem. The second problem is the lack of an alternative. Instagram is free, and a big reason for that is that it's a part of Meta. Same for WhatsApp. Once they're separated, there is no guarantee that they will survive as standalone businesses. So who will bear the cost of that? The customers, most likely. They may be charged for services that are currently free. And that is why this is tricky. On one hand, you have a classic Silicon Valley story, a couple of bold bets that paid off. On the other hand, you have a powerful tech giant, too powerful for its own good. So it's no more about whether Meta broke the law. It's about whether the law can keep up. When Zuckerberg bought Instagram, the same watchdog, the FTC, did not bat an eye. Now, a decade later, they want to undo the deal. But can you really unwind a decade of digital dominance? Even if Instagram and WhatsApp are forced to split, the damage is already done. The market share has shifted. Consumer habits have changed. So in the end, the question is not if Meta should be broken up. The question is, can it be broken up? And if it can't, then who's really in charge? Is it the regulators or big tech? Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, they practically own the weight loss market, and a pharma giant wants to join this lucrative club. I'm talking about Pfizer. It has been developing a weight loss drug of its own. Not an injection, but a weight loss pill. But now that plan has been scrapped. Pfizer has dumped its potential pill because during a clinical trial, a patient had liver injury. Now, this is certainly a setback for the company, but it also raises questions for others. How safe are weight loss drugs, and how much do we really know about them? Here's a report.
Celebrities are slimming down. Tabloids are wondering which drug they're taking. And Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro and Zepbound are quickly becoming household names. Weight loss drugs are a lucrative market, expected to reach about $150 billion in a few years. And these drugs hold a lot of promise, especially as by 2035, more than half the global population is expected to be overweight or obese. But there's a major problem that patients face. Leading brands like Wegovy and Zepbound are injectable. There are a lot of patients who can't inject themselves daily. So drug makers have been working on the next best thing, a pill that's easy to take. One of the companies developing it is the pharma giant Pfizer, or should we say was. Pfizer had been experimenting with its weight loss pill danuglipron. This pill was being developed to be taken once daily. Researchers were trying to find out the best dose for patients. They were about to venture into late-stage testing, which is generally the last and most expensive phase of testing before a company submits its proposal to regulators for approval. But that's when one patient fell ill. A participant in one of the clinical trials experienced possible drug-induced liver injury, and it ended once the person stopped taking the treatment. This was a clear sign that something was very wrong with the drug. And after this finding, Pfizer has ended the development of its potential pill to treat obesity and says that it will stop studying danuglipron. This is a major setback for the company, but it raises a range of questions. How safe are these drugs, and how much do we know about them? According to top doctors, these drugs should only be used by people when prescribed to fight obesity or diabetes. But that's not really the case, is it? Weight loss drugs are seen as a quick fix to lose a few kilos. Experts say that people are misusing them, and it can come with a range of side effects like nausea, bloating, and vomiting. For many, the complications can be life-threatening, like inflammation in the organs and alterations in the sodium levels in blood. According to studies, people injecting these medicines can be at a higher risk of developing digestive problems such as stomach paralysis and bowel obstructions. Studies have also tied these drugs to suicidal thoughts. And that's not all. What makes all of this worse is the black market. Weight loss drugs can be expensive. If people stop taking them, they usually regain the weight. So it's a big investment, one that many people can't afford. So they are reaching for the black market of these drugs, where illegal injections can be purchased online or offline at less than half the cost. And they come with high risks, including death. Despite the concerns, tens of millions of people the world over are willing to pay the price for weight loss drugs. These drugs are a new phenomenon, and research is playing catch-up to explore their gains and damage. Researchers often call this the Great Ozempic Experiment, because despite their promise, it will be years before we fully learn about their consequences, and by then, it may be too late.
In the US, the vice president's job is quite simple. Don't make it to the headlines. Technically, you are just one step away from the presidency, but in reality, you don't have much to do. Your job is to stay in the shadows. But looks like J.D. Vance did not get the memo because he has dropped the ball, or rather, the trophy. America's college football champions visited the White House on Monday. It's customary for winning teams to do so. As the event wrapped up, it was time to click photos. J.D. Vance was supposed to pick up the trophy and hold it up. But unfortunately, he fumbled, that too in front of Trump, his officials, the entire football team, and the world's media. This is how it played out. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. In Turkey, thousands protest against Israel's recent attacks on Gaza. Flying cars and robots enthrall the audience at the Osaka Expo, and elephants huddle together to protect their young as an earthquake hits Southern California. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1994, around 123 countries signed the Marrakesh Agreement. It led to the creation of the World Trade Organization. The WTO was founded to promote multilateral trade. It is facing its biggest challenge in the middle of Donald Trump's current trade war. We're leaving you on that note. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
смотрит.
Greeting you with aloha and namaste.
I love India.
Presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India. What we saw in Kashmir.
How do you see Trump's America?
Yes, the current administration behaves differently from the previous administration.
Are you saying that there are foreign powers who are trying to bring down the current government in Syria?
Exactly.
Iran, maybe Russia too.
Prime Minister Modi committed to South-South, cooperation.
Not over 50%.
Is Ukraine prepared to pay the price for that peace?
No compromises at the cost of territorial integrity and sovereignty.